Tayson Gaines practices real estate litigation, including but not limited to foreclosure defense, partition actions, quiet title, short sales, loan modifications, insurance claims adjustments, title deeds, and real estate contract disputes. Attorney Gaines attended the University of Miami School of Law. Mr. Gaines acquired his experience in real estate litigation by assisting with landlord-tenant disputes and foreclosure defense. Foreclosure is a legal process where a creditor, such as a lender or condo association, files a lawsuit to obtain judgment authorizing it to place your property up for sale at a public auction. At the Gaines Law Firm, you will have a one-on-one consultation to discuss different options, including loan modifications, refinance, and whether bankruptcy is recommended. Once you receive notice about the lawsuit, most people typically have 20 days to respond to the suit. If you file a response contesting the foreclosure action, it may take years before a judge rules or whether to grant foreclosure. Most people don't know that there are many options available to them when faced with foreclosure. Attorney Gaines, a real estate attorney, is equipped to prepare and review documents relating to real estate, such as purchase agreements, mortgage documents, title documents, and transfer documents in most cases. Don't try to take the big banks on alone. Contact Attorney Tayson Gaines at 561-543-9226. That's 561-543-9226.
We are back, now with more of the Ask the Experts radio show, proudly sponsored by board-certified family law attorney Tina Lewert of Lewert Law LLC, covering South Florida.
And we are back. I got to tell you, I've been doing this for 7 years, and I got to tell you that I sat in church this week thinking about the show today, this particular one, because the topic is rather sad, but the upside of it is we have the most incredible expert attorney that hopefully tonight can answer some of your questions. But it's sad because of this pandemic. A lot of people have lost their jobs, have lost their homes, or are about to lose their homes. The economy is bad. But again, you know what? We're bringing on one of the top bankruptcy, real estate, foreclosure attorneys in South Florida. So maybe he can possibly rest your mind, but he is a great person to make a call to and let him see if he can get you out of all this. Let me introduce you to Tayson Gaines of the Gaines firm. Good evening, Tayson.
Good evening. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you, buddy. Um,
Seems
Boy, I
seems
gotta
like a
tell you,
long
this is,
time, but it's only been a
I
month.
know it does. It's bankruptcy and foreclosure is a sad subject, but it's nothing to be embarrassed about anymore like it used to be. And tonight we're going to talk about bankruptcy and foreclosure. But before we get started, I love hearing about your background and about your law firm.
Sure. So I grew up in Palm Beach County. I went to Suncoast High School. I was in the IB program there. I went to college and received both a bachelor's and a master's in business administration. And then I ended up finishing up law school at the University of Miami, focusing most of my attentions on property, real estate, and related issues. So that's my background. I've been practicing law now consistently. This is my 5th year having my firm. And I was almost exclusively real estate. I've recently branched out to some other areas, but my legal background, where I got started, the first job I ever had in the field has all been real estate. So we've just been growing from there, learning as much as possible and trying to protect people and help them with any issues that they have related to property and real estate.
Well, I got to tell you, Tayson, you make it so understanding that, some attorneys come, they start talking over your head. You have no idea what they're saying, but you really break it down to where people can understand. And I think that's what makes your show so good. Um, we're going to talk about, first of all, how does a person know when to file bankruptcy?
Okay, that's a great question. Yeah. I don't think there's any, standard or cookie cutter answer to that question. I think it really depends on each and every person's personal situation, right? Whether you own a company or whether it's just personal debt that you're concerned about. A lot of it depends on what other assets you have, right? And so it really depends on a particular individual situation. What I can tell you is that people should not be rushing to bankruptcy. As far as I'm concerned, it is a last life life vessel or life raft, right? And so, for those who are in foreclosure or even those who have other consumer debt related issues, whether it's credit cards or other, secured or unsecured debts, the key for me is to exhaust all of your opportunities and all of your resources with adequate representation before you rush to bankruptcy, because as you know, that hinders your credit profile and it significantly limits what you can do financially, whichever chapter you file in. So, a lot of the other, foreclosure, the other debt collection services, those type of things are worth defending and investigating the options, if it can prevent you from having to go into bankruptcy. Not
But
always
what if,
is that possible, but if it is, those remedies should be exhausted first.
well, Tyson, what if you're threatened with foreclosure? Should you then think about bankruptcy?
Yeah, so in my opinion, you want to consider all your options. So don't take any of them off the table. But for just being subjected to foreclosure, whether you're just getting the initial letters or whether you're actually in a foreclosure lawsuit, right? Either way, you want to defend those cases. You want to exhaust all of your alternatives. Any real qualified real estate attorney has a plethora of options that they can consider and that they can investigate. And all you need is one particular program or one solution that fits for you that can allow you to either restructure the debt in the foreclosure, maybe a deed in lieu, maybe a short sale. There's many and many options out there short of rushing to bankruptcy. So my position is exhaust those remedies first and make sure that you always consult an attorney anytime you receive legal documentation from your lender, because the earlier you're involved in your foreclosure process, the more defenses and the more options you'll have available to you.
Tyson, how long does it take? I'm sure people, this is like one of the first things on their mind. How long does it take for the bank to foreclose on a property?
Right. Good. Great question. So, from start to finish, if a foreclosure is defended properly, these cases can take, an average 18 months to 2 years if they're just defended properly. Whether or not you owe the debt or not, if you have adequate representation, usually that's the time period that you're looking at, because these are very intense, very detailed cases and files. And so it takes a lot of discovery work for both sides to figure out exactly what your liability may be, if any. And that can give people a lot of options having that big of a time period to kind of stabilize themselves or restructure some of their finances, right? But if you're not represented by counsel and you don't adequately defend the case, these cases can, some of them can be done in as quick as 5 or 6 months. So there's a
Wow.
big difference between not properly defending and having adequate representation. So
I hope
those are kind of
people
the two ranges that you're
understand
looking at depending on
what
the
you're
case.
saying is if you have an attorney like Tayson representing you, this could be prolonged up till 18 months. But if you're trying to do it yourself to save some money, it could happen in 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, again, if anybody out there has ever had a default, that's basically the court's way of saying, hey, you did not respond within the 20-day window that the state of Florida gives you to respond to this foreclosure complaint. And after that time, your lender can then move for a default. Once a default is entered by the court and they're granted as a matter of procedure if you do not respond. Or if your response, even if you file a response, is if it's not a sufficient legal defense that's articulated in that response, a default can be granted. And once that's granted, it is very, very hard to get them undone. And so, as far as I'm concerned, you're really on a short track to losing the property, being stuck with a deficiency judgment, and having your credit ruined, having your home taken, and really having major, major problems. So, you want to be active on the case, but you actually want to make sure mostly that you submit a sufficient legal response, not just a letter or your personal opinion, or, because at the end of the day, I lost my job, or I was sick, or my mom had COVID. None of those things are legal defenses, unfortunately. And so you want to make sure that what you put forth to the court is an adequate legal defense, because in the court of law, you only get one shot at the apple. If you
Right.
don't submit the proper responses in the first response, almost always you're stuck with what you have submitted, and if they're no good, you won't have a second shot at correcting it.
Now, once they retain you, they don't have to talk to the banks anymore. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So we communicate with the bank immediately. We notify them, send over a letter of representation to the bank to notify them that we are now representing the client and that all communication should go through us. And we begin to take over that communication to let the bank know that, hey, you have representation. You're not going to just, take advantage of the client, and a lot of times the banks give misleading information. So they'll send you a letter saying, hey, you're approved for a modification, but at the same time, they really take no interest in getting that modification approved. And I see a lot of clients take those letters and think that, hey, they're going to give me a good deal, they're going to work it out with me, and they kind of take a reserved posture. And a lot of times that is strategic by the banks. And so you want to make sure that you're active, that you're involved, and that you move these things as efficiently as possible, and you take advantage of the one opportunity that you have to defend your case.
Before we go to break, does a person have to move out of their house during the foreclosure process?
Absolutely not. And that goes both for a tenant who may be residing in a home that's getting foreclosed, as long as they have a legitimate tenant contract, a lease agreement, what have you. They have no obligation to leave the property until they're served with what's called a writ of possession, where a court is ordered that they leave. And it's very similar for the actual owner. So if you have owners still residing in the property, though they may be in the foreclosure process and subject to a foreclosure action, they are not obligated in any fashion to leave that property. And a lot of the times, if you do leave that property, you kind of give the lenders some false sense, or some extra confidence that they don't need, because they think that you've given up. If you leave, most times, you're not really going to put that much energy or resources into defending the foreclosure case. And so the lenders notice that, and a lot of times they'll take a lot of options that might be on the table for others. They'll take them off the table because they kind of see that you're not going to put up as much of a fight. So you don't want to leave. As far as I'm concerned, it's still your house until a judge orders it otherwise, and you're entitled to that home. And so you don't want to, what we call in legal terms, abandon the home, because that can come with other repercussions. So stay in the home. You never know what will happen. You never know how your finances may change. You never know what program you may get approved for. So you want to stay in as long as possible, because it just keeps more options on the table.
See, I got to tell you, and we're going to go to a break, but I got to tell you, see, when you try to represent yourself, you don't know any of this. This is why it's so important to have an attorney like Tayson Gaines representing you, because there's so many mistakes that you can make, and a lot of times you're not going to be able to undo them. Tayson, give everybody your phone number.
Sure. So my direct line is 561-543-9226. That's the Palm Beach office. We also have a location in Broward, but the best line is 561-543-9226.
Okay, let me get 561.
Yep.
What's the
561
rest of it?
543 9226.
Okay, we're going to go to break. We come back. We got so many more questions for Tayson Gaines, the Gaines firm. We're talking bankruptcy and foreclosure tonight. We'll be right back.
Attorney Tayson Gaines practices real estate litigation, including but not limited to foreclosure defense, partition actions, quiet title, short sales, loan modifications, insurance claims adjustments, title deeds, and real estate contract disputes. Attorney Gaines attended the University of Miami School of Law. Mr. Gaines acquired his experience in real estate litigation by assisting with landlord-tenant disputes and foreclosure defense. Foreclosure is a legal process where a creditor, such as a lender or condo association, files a lawsuit to obtain judgment authorizing it to place your property up for sale at a public auction. At the Gaines Law Firm, you will have a one-on-one consultation to discuss different options, including loan modifications, refinance, and whether bankruptcy is recommended. Once you receive notice about the lawsuit, most people typically have 20 days to respond to the suit. If you file a response contesting the foreclosure action, it may take years before a judge rules or whether to grant foreclosure. Most people don't know that there are many options available to them when faced with foreclosure. Attorney Gaines, a real estate attorney, is equipped to prepare and review documents relating to real estate, such as purchase agreements, mortgage documents, title documents, and transfer documents in most cases. Don't try to take the big banks on alone. Contact Attorney Tayson Gaines at 561-543-9226. That's 561-543-9226.
We are back now with more of the Ask the Experts radio show, proudly sponsored by board-certified family law attorney Tina Lewert of Lewert Law LLC, covering South Florida.
And we are back. This is Ask the Expert show. We're on with you every Thursday night from 6 to 7. And it's funny, I'm starting to get emails now from people who were driving home from work, going through the dial, and heard our show and have listened to it ever since. So we get a lot of people who weren't necessarily looking for us, but they found us because they're sitting in a car in traffic during drive time. We're here, we're talking with Tayson Gaines, the Gaines firm, and we're talking about bankruptcy and foreclosure tonight. Tayson, will anyone come in my house during the foreclosure sale if I'm going through a foreclosure? Can they just come into my house?
No one can come into your house. So fundamental property law says that until ownership changes, you own your home. And that doesn't happen until your property is sold. Even after a foreclosure judgment, right? You go through the entire foreclosure process. Even when the judgment is granted, you are still the owner until it is sold and until the title changes from your name to someone else. So up until that time, no one has the right to kick you out. No one has the right to view the property. No realtors have the right to market the property. You are the owner and you still control, possession, use, peaceable enjoyment, everything associated with your property. So um, while investors and those types may try to develop a relationship with you or try to, infiltrate and get their way into seeing the property to speculate on the next deal. If your property is subject to foreclosure, you are not forced nor obligated to allow any of those people in.
Hey, Tayson, I think your cousin just texted us. Somebody just is saying, tell everybody again that Tayson went to Miami Law School, University of Miami Law School. I guess it's the alumni out there. But
Hey,
that is a
they're
great law
they're
school.
definitely strong in South Florida. That's for sure.
No kidding. So, can I sell can I sell my property when I'm going through foreclosure and take that money to pay the bank?
So, that's an obvious thing that many people try, especially in this climate where a lot of people, at least those who bought 2, 3, or more years ago, they usually have some equity in the property. And so they want to try to get that equity out before they lose the home. Um, you cannot just sell it. And I'll tell you why. Um, what happens whenever a foreclosure is filed is a lis pendens, which is a legal document, is filed in the court record. And that basically is a notice to all people, all of the public, that there is some type of encumbrance or issue with the property. And so what happens whenever there's a lis pendens, while technically you can sell it if you can find a buyer, due to the fact that most transactions are done with a title or closing agent, right? Use a title company to make sure everything's done right, to make sure the taxes are paid, to make sure there's no liens against the property. Most title companies, when they see that lis pendens, will not approve it to close. And generally, that's because whichever underwriters and lenders are financing the new deal or the new purchase usually want that title to be what we call completely clean. And so
Right.
anytime you have a lis pendens on there, it kind of shows up and it pops up in our mind, similar to like a lien or encumbrance. Even though it's not a lien, most underwriters going to want that lis pendens removed prior to it being sold. So it can become difficult for an owner who's already in the foreclosure process to just sell that home. So that can be tricky. Will certain buyers take it on? Of course, certain investors who are really educated, but most buyers, especially those who have lenders, will not be able to get approved for that purchase.
Tayson, what if should a person try to make mortgage payments when they're in foreclosure?
Right. So I think that's like the $1 million question, right? In my opinion, you always want to satisfy the terms of your obligation, right? And so assuming that you entered into your mortgage and your promissory note voluntarily, consciously, knowingly, right? You want to comply with that contract as much as possible. However, there are some times in certain situations where the writing is kind of on the wall, right? If I've lost my job, if my primary source of income is no longer there, if I've lost my support system, my family that was supporting me, and I know that, whether it's 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, that I'm not going to be able to keep up with these mortgage payments, then you have to make certain calculated decisions, right? And if it's a decision that comes down to whether I'm going to be homeless in 6 months or 12 months and have absolutely no money to support myself, then maybe if I'm already months behind, maybe I just try to save that money during the foreclosure process. Maybe I try to have some kind of security to help me move forward, you know, um, when and if that foreclosure goes through. So I think it's an individual decision. In a perfect world, everybody should satisfy the obligations of their contract. But I've seen life and death situations where people have gone down that road, paid, tried to keep up. Interest rates on their loan the variable rates keep going up, so the mortgage keeps increasing. And they really, you can tell if I'm on a fixed income, especially, that eventually I'm not going to be able to afford this. And so My opinion is consider all the alternatives that are out there, modifications, forbearance, deferments, whatever you have available, consider those. But in certain cases, if you can't pay now, then there's a strong likelihood that you won't be able to pay later. So you may want to try to kind of cut your losses and work out a resolution with the bank, prior to getting in a situation where you just can't pay anything and you continue to get further and further delinquent on that loan.
Well, there's our music. Tayson, give everybody your phone number.
Sure. So again, it's 561-543-9226. Again, the Gaines Law Firm, 561-543-9226. Offices in both North Palm Beach and Palm Beach County and in Broward County as well. So we're servicing both counties right now and expanding across the state.
Tayson, you're the best. Thank you, and have a Merry Christmas and a healthy New Year. Thank you, Tayson.
Thank you, brother. Happy holidays to you and all the other family out there listening. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be back with you next week with more Ask the Experts. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for tuning in today to Ask the Experts, sponsored by board-certified family law attorney Tina Lewert of Lewert Law, LLC. Join host Steve-O again next Thursday for more interviews with the top experts in South Florida in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement on Ask the Experts.
The opinions expressed on the